Okay, you're good to go, Mark.
Okay. The May 24, 2021 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 5:31 p.m. Welcome, everybody. We'll do a roll call of board members present. I'm Mark Everett, present. Kate Grandusky.
Here.
Brad Buffero.
Here.
Valerie Ingram.
Here.
Narcisse Rodriguez.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And Miley Vernon was unable to attend tonight, so she won't be with us this evening. The school board will hear public comment for unscheduled public appearance received through the designated email address, which is publiccomment@fgsd.k12.or.us and is on the district website. Comments will be read by district staff at the appropriate time on the agenda and will be limited to 3 minutes. Would you please rise and join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight.
I second.
Moved and seconded, so the roll call vote of that. Narcisse?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you. So we've got no student report, representative report this evening, but we do have correspondence, calendar notes, and recognition in the superintendent report. So I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. So we're continuing to watch the virus statistics in the county drop. In the last 3 weeks, we've gone from 200 per 100,000 for 2 weeks to 164, and last week it dropped to 117, which is great news. We're continuing to see the virus counts drop. As of today, we're allowing students who are outside students and staff who are outside go maskless. We sent this information out on Friday. This is irregardless of their vaccination status. Both staff and students outside can do that. Inside, we're maintaining the rules that we were already following. To go maskless inside, we need to check the vaccination status of everyone who is inside. And that, for our last 3.5 weeks of school, doesn't seem to be the best use of our time and energy. So we're maintaining kind of our current mask rules inside during the school day. RSSL guidance. So coming into next year, all of our planning so far is really around going back to 5 days a week, our normal school hours, back to school as normal. ODE has yet to produce what those guidelines, what the RSSL guidelines will be for the fall. Their basic plan is to get us a draft of these sometime around the 2nd week of June, and then to take public comment and school district comment on those guidelines, and then to get them, readjust them according to the feedback, and then try and get them back to us by July 15th. I don't have the dates or the way in which ODE is going to do that feedback process, but we're already providing them feedback. The July 15th is late too, so we can use this information as soon as possible to try and figure out what we're doing in the fall. But I just wanted to make sure people knew kind of what the plan is. We should see a draft of these in the next couple of weeks here, so we can start to understand kind of what the expectations are going to be for masks, social distancing, and some of those other pieces in the fall. We have Juliana here tonight. I know there were some questions about the middle school, their schedule, some of the classes, and she's here tonight to talk about her some of the classes later on. But I thought I'd just give her just a moment to let you know kind of what the schedule's looking like and some of the class pieces. Juliana.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parker, and hello, good evening. I know there are some questions about what next year will look like at Neil Armstrong. Right now, we're going forward with a 7-period day. So we're, fingers crossed that we'll be back just like normal in the fall. So what's great about that is that we can bring back electives that we're missing this year. And there are just more opportunities with a 7-period day than we had this year with a 5-period day. So we're really looking forward to that. And I'm going to present a couple of electives a little bit later on. There are, along with that, a few changes. So we, as many of you know, hired on a couple of math intervention teachers, which is also exciting. Math intervention will take the place of some electives, though. So we're making some adjustments on who is teaching electives during the day. In the past, we've had all of our core teachers teaching an elective on top of their core subject. So for next year, one of the core subjects that will not be teaching an elective is language arts. And instead, they will be really focusing, actually our whole school will be focusing a lot on our core instruction. And language arts specifically will have a slightly lower number in their classes throughout the day to work on differentiating. And part of our reason around that is many of you heard that we are not doing accelerated or honors for next school year, except for the classes where it really matters for high school credit or math. So math, we will still be doing our advanced math classes. We will still have AP Spanish because that goes to high school credit. And in our other classes, what we're going to work on is focusing on having a really strong core and teaching really rigorous classes with flexibility to do grouping so that kids who need extension get extension, kids who need intervention get that. And in addition, we're going to be really strategic about our advisory, which will now be, we did a vote and advisory will be on Wednesday instead of Friday. And we're going to be really intentional about academic advisory and what that looks like so that kids are getting some interventions during advisory time. I think those were the things that I was going to speak on. Is there anything else you can think of, Mr. Parker?
No, those were the pieces. I just wanted to make sure people kind of knew what we were doing there because we had been doing something different this year.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have a question about how, you're saying basically the gist of that kind of was that because you guys are adding math interventions, that you can't have that you're not going to have the honors classes. I know that's not exactly how you said it.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I meant.
Instead, you're going to have electives, these other electives, but it just doesn't seem, why should you be taking one away that you've had in the past to add something different? It looks like it's almost like you're helping a specific group of kids over a different group of kids.
Yeah, I probably didn't explain that the best way. So they're kind of two separate topics. They are related. So the reason why I was bringing up the math intervention was because we're freeing up our language arts teachers and they won't be teaching an elective. So that's why I brought that up. We needed space for those teachers to teach all core classes throughout the day.
So they don't have, since you're freeing them up from that, they don't have time to do the honors language arts? You guys couldn't add that in?
What we're looking at is looking at our core instruction as a whole and making sure that all of those instructional strategies are rigorous for all of our kids.
And you guys have a game plan of how you're going to increase the rigor for that?
We do. Yeah, we've already started those conversations.
And then how are you going to track that between the students?
So we'll look at our data like we usually do with our STAR data. We're also going to look more closely at our data team process to make sure we are being really firm with our data team process so that we're looking at more kids more frequently with that. and making sure we're not missing any kids and what their needs are. And with this, we're also starting to roll out little by little. Our district has been rolling out the MTSS, and NAMS is on the docket for that. We're working on rolling some of that out. This next year is a lot around like common strategies and universal supports for every kid.
What do you guys have a game plan if you have a certain group of students who are consistently getting their grade is consistently over a 95%, to add rigor for them, or how are you gonna acknowledge that or treat that?
Yeah, there'll be a couple of places. So one place will be during advisory time that will be used also for extension for those kids who really need extension, but also right within that core period, we're going to be really intentional that kids get what they need. So if that means extension for part of that period, they'll get that, as well as the kids who might need intervention. Also, we do have a plan for kids who qualify TAG, to be grouping those kids mindfully so that they can get their extension at their level that they really need.
What does extension mean?
It's just like more rigorous, like above grade level work, whatever they need at that level.
The teacher would have more work to give out to those students.
It's not necessarily more work, it's different work, harder.
Can I ask what honors or what advanced class? I wrote that you have the AP Spanish.
Yeah, we have AP Spanish. All of our math classes that we've typically had will continue. So algebra, geometry, and accelerated.
And then was honors language arts the only other one that?
No, we had science and social sciences that had honors as well, which part of the decision making too with that one was that those classes were semester classes this year because of the cohorting that we had to do. We need to go back to developing our full year curriculum with those ones.
Okay, so you're changing 3 content areas then, is that right? Honors science, honors social studies, and honors language arts?
Yes.
Okay. I have to be honest, I'm not necessarily, I'm a proponent of the honors classes, and so to see those go away, it's happened pretty quickly. I think we were made aware of it just recently. So is that done?
We're looking at that for next year. It doesn't mean it's done forever. We were really I'm sorry?
How long, I just wonder how long, what's the history of the honors classes? How long have you had them at NAMS?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Maybe you can get back to me about that. I don't know if it's been 5 years or 10 years, or I don't know how long you've had them.
So it looks like we have some questions here. So why don't I schedule some more conversation about this? Because I'm seeing the questions that are coming up, and we can do a little bit more of a presentation around this. Does that sound like a good idea, folks?
Yeah, that sounds fine. Fine with me.
Maybe I just have one comment before we move on. I would be interested in, if you do away with the honors language arts, then it decreases the number of kids in that core classroom. So I would be interested to know what the numbers were, not last year, but the prior year, and how that changes by doing away with that honors in terms of instruction and number of kids in the classroom. And then the other piece I would be interested in is what are your baseline scores that you're using in terms of measuring student gains to really make adjustments to maybe next year's schedule if, to Mark's point, if things don't go the way that we think they're going to go, is there an option maybe to move back to that honors class, and what would that look like? I don't need the answers now. I'll throw that out, and maybe on that presentation, we can have that discussion.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
Narcy had her hand up. Narcy, did you want to ask a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to just type it up. My question, and also Juliana can be answered later. Just was curious if there are any equity issues based on the new proposals that you have, or the new initiatives Are there any equity issues for second language learners?
Good question.
Juliana and I will work together and bring something back for you. And again, if you have more questions, just send those to us and we'll get that prepped.
I have a quick question. What is a 7-day period? Is it 45 minutes or is it an hour? How long is a 7-day? Well, how long is each period with the students?
I believe it's about 48 minutes.
48 minutes. So my comment would be, I think we have to have honor classes, and I don't think 40 minutes is adequate.
So again, we're going to need, it sounds like we're going to need to have a discussion here. So we will bring this back to you. And then so I'm headed on to something new here. So is there, okay. The last thing is I just wanted, today we had our district retiree celebration. We had our total number of retirees retiring with 374 years of teaching experience and 261 years in Forest Grove. We had 10, 13, looks like 15 folks retire. It was really, all of the buildings kind of did videos. It was a really nice celebration for our folks who are retiring. So just want to highlight them. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mark.
Okay.
To keep us moving.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And I'm realizing, I'm looking back at the agenda, I'm realizing that I didn't do audience introductions. So let's see, if you haven't been speaking, Mr. O'Neill, maybe we could, I see you there.
Sure. Yes, John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Okay, Mr. Ryman.
Hi, Henry Ryman, Chief of Police at Forest Grove.
Thank you, welcome. Ms. Graves, Mrs. Graves.
Hi, Angela Graves, Principal of Cornelius.
Okay. And let's see, how's Oz?
Osvaldo Garcia Contreras, Coordinator of Equity, Migrant and ELL Services.
Thank you. Karen?
Karen O'Neill, High School Principal.
And I see Kim.
Kim Shear, Director of Student Services.
David?
David Warner, Director of Communications.
Eileen?
Eileen Flute, Director of Finance and Operations.
Kevin?
Kevin Noreen, Human Resources.
And Enrique?
Enrique Piñon, IT Manager.
Okay, oh, and Kathy. Okay. All right, let's move on here. So the next item is unscheduled public appearance. So the board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments should be submitted through the designated email address and will be read by district staff. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol during in-person board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel is not allowed at this time. Are there any comments that have been received?
Yes, I have two.
Okay.
The first one, dear school board members and superintendent, we are writing today to ask the Forest Grove School District to end its contract with the Forest Grove Police Department at this time. We are requesting that the district put a pause on having armed officers stationed at any schools in the district on a regular basis. While there is value in having at least one FGPD officer trained in juvenile issues, we believe that based on research into school violence, it is doing more harm than good to have this officer in full armed uniform at the high school on a regular basis. We would like the district to look into other ways to protect children from mass shooters and to consider evidence-based strategies that enhance school safety and also keep kids out of the school to prison pipeline. We believe there is a better way, and we believe Forest Grove School District can find that path. Thank you. Fighting for change. Second one, Dear FGSD school board members, I am writing to submit an idea for consideration with regards to the role of the SRO at the high school for the 21-22 school year. I believe this city is in an unique position to lead the way when it comes to refining and possibly redefining the role that community policing can play in strengthening a community. In each city, that decision should consider not only research-based practices, but equally the unique talents, expertise, and vision that are available on our staff and in our community. Luckily, we have some amazing people with experiences we can draw upon right now. In Forest Grove, we have a chief of police, Henry Ryman, who was originally the SRO at my building when I started teaching in Hillsborough in the 1990s. His background is based in the community policing construct, and his decades of experience bring with it a wealth of knowledge about how the SRO position can have a powerful and meaningful impact on a school community. We are also fortunate to have active social justice groups who are advocating for a similar vision and changes. I think there is a way to bring these forces together and work in real time to make changes that everyone in this community would be able to support. I recently had an opportunity to support a pause on the SRO placement at the high school for next year. After careful consideration and with my experience as a teacher and also as a colleague of many effective SROs, I would like to propose that the school district consider the SRO position remain next year, with the understanding that our chief of police, along with representatives of our community and possibly our city CPAC committee, work together as the year progresses to analyze, gather data, make changes, and view this as an opportunity to enact change in real time. From my experience, when changes must be made within a system, those changes can happen more quickly, and we can respond to, quote, monitor and adjust, close quote, as we say in the teaching world, while we work to build a stronger model. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Christy Kotke, mom of Henry Kotke, FGHS Oak Grove Academy student.
Thank you. David, the first comment that you read, is that a group? I think you said that it was fighting for change.
Yes, yeah, it's signed Fighting for Change, which I believe is a group.
Okay, no other information on that group or where
it looks like the email was sent from Hope Kramer on behalf of the group Fighting for Change.
Oh, okay.
How I'm seeing the email address coming in.
Okay, and I believe Hope's sent comments in before, if I recall.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Got it, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Okay, hearing no comments, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. I am a yes. And let's see, Valerie?
Yes.
Narce?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thanks. The next, we have two presentations this evening, and the first is the goals of Forest Grove School District and City of Forest Grove School Resource Officer relationship. And I believe Mr. Parker and Mr. Ryman are presenting these this evening. So I'll turn it over to you two.
Yeah, I'm gonna just start it out with tonight. We've got Chief Ryman here to kind of talk about the goals of the SRO program. We also have some data that we kind of ran through the high school, both students and staff. And then I pulled together some of the research to just talk through all of that. And then I'll give you a little bit of the next steps. So that's kind of our presentation tonight. But we're going to start with Chief Ryman kind of talking through some of the goals of the program.
Well, thank you everyone for having me this evening, and let me share my screen here. Okay, did that pop up for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Again, Henry Ryman, I'm Chief of Police, and as Ms. Kotke said in her letter, I was one of the first SROs for the city of Hillsborough when we started that program in the early 90s. Over the years, I also had that program in my division as I went up in the ranks. Tonight, I'm going to do a quick PowerPoint on the things that most SR programs do and what hopefully we will be doing here in Forest Grove, and to take care of any issues about what people think we do. So with that, it's not uncommon for an SRO to be asked, what do you do all day? And sometimes that can be a complicated and not an easy answer. So an SRO has a diverse role in the school and the community, and has many duties and responsibilities. So we have defined the school resource officer as a sworn officer to assign to a school or to many schools on a long-term basis, and is trained to perform three major roles: foster a positive school environment, provide education, and to provide law enforcement resources. In addition, the officer works in a collaboration with the school and the community as a resource for safety and security issues. The school resource officer works with students, parents, and teachers and administrators to facilitate safe school environments that foster and support our youth. Here are a few of the things that we do. Drug awareness training, cyber safety, safe school routes, bullying intervention, attendance and care teams, dating education and safety, summer school and camps, mentorship, and resource referrals. And in our program here at Forest Grove, the school resource officer usually continues that interaction with students either through camps or serving lunches and other such programs through the summer. So they're not automatically taken off and put back on the road. The SRO also assists the school administration in maintaining a safe and secure environment. School administrators benefit from the SRO's training, knowledge, and experience in handling situations. We are not part of the disciplinary process. I have to repeat that. We are not part of the disciplinary process. We are also responsible for investigating violations of criminal law. An SRO's sworn duty to enforce the laws do not contradict the need for the SRO to be a positive role model, but it supports that philosophy. It is essential for an SRO to endorse high morale standards and use good judgment and discretion. Through this, students learn and understand what a professional police officer does and what their roles and responsibilities are. It's important to note that SROs are not school disciplinarians. SROs are not involved in investigating school rule violations, such as a student cheating on a test. Violations of school rules are the responsibility of the principal and faculty members. And a lot of times parents will seek information from the school resource officer if they suspect their children may be experimenting with drugs or alcohol. Students will also ask the SRO for advice concerning recent events in their lives. Many times students will just want someone to talk to about their problems they are experiencing, and the school resource officer can't act as another caring adult in the school building who works to find positive solutions for young people. SROs also have contact with a majority of the students in a school. The school resource officer can serve as a resource for educators in sharing of their experience as law-related educators when they're invited into the classroom as guest speakers. A lot of times that might even go beyond the law enforcement segment. I know when I was an SRO, we helped with math classes, talking about skid ratios and showing how math is important no matter what career you're in. Now, classroom presentations by an SRO complement the school's curriculum, as I just mentioned. as well as give the SRO the opportunity to interact with students and discuss law-related issues or even social issues. The contact the school resource officer has with students in the classroom is a positive learning experience. In addition to supporting the faculty in the classroom, the school resource officer has the opportunity to provide other educational activities to the entire school community. The school resource officer provides crisis and emergency training to the faculty and staff. The school resource officer will also conduct informal presentations to parents, groups concerning emerging drug trends their children may be exposed to. They may also speak to school clubs about driver safety issues. Well, school resource officer law-related educational efforts can only be limited by their imagination. The school resource officer program is designed to fill 3 overall roles. Again, to foster a positive school climate, education, and law enforcement. We are already discussing the following changes in the program. So we'll be increasing the amount of training we have for the SRO every year, changing the uniform to better fit with the above goals, such as wearing a soft uniform, work with the school administrators on separating the duties of the school resource officer and any school discipline that does not involve a crime, providing data back to the city and to the school district on their monthly activity and their impact of those contacts. So with that said, I don't know, Dave, if you want to jump in and do your piece, or do you want me to take questions at this point?
I think if there's some questions right now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what our kids and what our staff are telling us about that, and then kind of point at some of the research before we finish and talk about next steps. So why don't we take questions for Henry first, and then I'll move into that. Narcia, I think, has her hand up.
Hi, Henry. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions and then some comments. So, and you did mention towards the end that there's going to be an increase of training. So my question is, where do they first of all get the training for SROs, in particular with an equity lens and working with children and families of other ethnic backgrounds and genders? So 2 questions. Where do they originally get their training? And what is the increased training going to look like, and how much training is that?
I think a lot of that is the continuing education could be open to negotiations with the school and what you feel we should be targeting as additional training for the school resource officer. There is actually a national training program for school resource officers, and I'm proud to say I was one of the people to help that create that curriculum 20 plus years ago, and it's changed over time and it's evolved. So I think, again, that's an open-ended piece for us to sit with either school board or with Dave's faculty and decide what areas they think we need to concentrate on, especially as you talk with the lens of equity and how we proceed to do that outreach to all students and all families.
And then the other question that goes along with that, Title IX, you know, it's also applicable in K through 12. So, you know, in the high school or just in general with Forest Grove School District, do the SROs work in alignment with the school administrators for Title IX, which is the sexual harassment?
Yes, they should be. We are required to do that type of training annually as part of our certification.
The investigation of harassment, though, wouldn't necessarily, that would be our administrators doing that, not the SRO, until there was a breakage of the law, that kind of thing. Is that what you meant, Narce?
Yeah, I was just trying, and yeah, I was just wondering about how that worked.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what kind of reports do the SROs do? So if there's an incident or a situation, what type of report do they do? Is it actually a police report? And is that provided to the administrators, because you said it's not used for disciplinary. So how is the record keeping taking place?
So, you know what I might do is put this question, because some of this I'm going to actually answer in my presentation. So maybe we should go through the rest of my presentation and then come back with the questions, because I'm going to get at some of these pieces.
Okay, I do have just one more comment. And Henry, you know, we work together and we're honest and transparent with each other. The visuals, you had all white males in your visuals, so that's sending an implicit bias. So it's just an opportunity to, if this is going to be presented to parents in the future or families, and you know, there's already a fear in certain communities about police officers, and they're wearing blue, and they're all white, and they're all male, and very fit. So you might want to change the image.
Well, I didn't want to put my out of shape figure out there, but thank you for pointing that out, and I'll say thank you very much.
You're welcome, Harry.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So let me go into the data part here, and then into what the research is saying and what some of the recommendations are, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hang on here. So what we did is we pushed out a thought exchange to the students and then the staff at the high school. The question that we asked them, and again, this thought exchange allows the kids to tell us, rather than me sending a survey that already has the questions outlined, this allows them to tell us what they're thinking and what their thoughts are. And then they rate those thoughts on whether or not they agree with them or not agree with them. This was the thought that we sent out to them. Students, what aspects and impacts of having school resource officers at our schools do you feel we should consider? Please focus your responses on those impacts, such as student safety, student mental well-being, or police interactions, and why they're important. So that's the question that we sent out to have students look at. We sent it out on May 10th for both students and staff. We basically prompted the students every day. Karen's here with us and she can fill in too, but the basic gist is each day we prompted them both with another email saying, we want you to fill this out, and also on the student announcements, so teachers were able to let students know that it was there. We closed the staff thought exchange on Friday at 5, and we let the students go on through the weekend, and then closed it on Monday at 5 for the students, just trying to get as much participation as we could through it. For the students, we had 218 participants. They had 79 thoughts, and they had 1,400 plus different ratings. They were split fairly evenly amongst all 4 grades. Ethnicity-wise, we had about 51% of the respondents were white. We're actually in that high school around 45% white, so we're a little overrepresented, but not much. Again, the rest of it, you can see the other breakdowns. There were some folks, about 9, almost 10%, 9%, who just preferred not to answer that question for us. Gender, we were overrepresented by females. We're closer, I think, want to say it's 51 or 52% of the student body is female. So we're a little overrepresented by females in this. And this is the first, so what these are is these are the words that were most common in the students' responses and the highest rated. So interaction, enforcement, emergency, intimidating, these are all words that came up in this thought exchange and were rated higher. And if you have questions as I'm going along, feel free to ask away.
Dave, I have a question.
Yep, absolutely.
Let me see, I wrote it down. Actually, it's not a question, it's more of a suggestion. I'll just wait till you're done.
Gotcha. Of the total thoughts. I'm going to break them down by some different groups here, but here's kind of some of the highest rated thoughts. And again, students could give 5 stars to something. These, the highest rated thoughts were in 3.9, which is telling you there's some differences here between our students. The first one, I'm just going to go through and read some of these and you can hear them. The first one that was one of the highest rated, which is, it can be intimidating as a freshman and seeing a police officer not knowing why they're there. You should send out an email telling freshmen so we all know why they're there and what to go to them for if we need them. Another thought, getting to know each other. Getting to know a school resource officer can be important because you may need help from time to time. Again, these are the ones that rose to the top from our students. I can understand why they're reserved in their interaction, but I think they should talk to students a bit more. I want to be more welcome to interact with officers of the community, and I think others could benefit from that too. A school resource officer is more inviting law enforcement personnel that students feel safer to interact with and talk to about their concerns they have. This level of open communication makes it more accessible for students to get help. A student is less likely to call 911 or talk to an admin. A student should have immediate protection if asked. If a student felt generally unsafe around somebody, then they should be around them. Then they should be around them if other students they felt unsafe about is around them. Safety, I think it's important to have an SRO at our school in case of emergency. It's a super fast response time to keep us all safe. Then we broke this down with, we looked at, one of the questions we asked students was that demographic question. So we went and we looked at the thoughts that were most highly rated by our Latinx students. I can understand, you've already seen this one. I can already understand they are reserved in their interaction, but I think they should talk to students a bit more. I want to be more welcome to interact with officers of the community, and I think others could benefit from that too. Again, these are thoughts, the highest rated thoughts from our Latinx students. I believe that students' mental and emotional well-being should be directed towards a counselor instead of an SRO. That is not the main purpose of an SRO. They should be empathetic, but not someone you need to talk to about your personal problems. Instead of an SRO, there should be somebody who is medically trained. In case someone suffers an injury, there should be someone trained to give first aid, if possible, multiple people. The next one down, I feel safe having an officer present. I'm scared of school shooters and I feel a sense of relief knowing an officer is present in the school. So those were some of the top rated thoughts. Now, one thing I am going to say is we're going to get you to the report. I'm going to give you a link at the end of this, and you can go through and look at all of the thoughts. We've taken the top rated one here, but you'll have a chance to go through and look through all of this and ask questions before we get to the next meeting. Again, these are thoughts from our Latinx students. I think they need to focus some more on what the students are doing. I've never personally been involved, but I know there's a fair number of students smoking weed, vaping, etc. And then the last comment by our Latinx students, not last, but the ones we grabbed off of the top. I think it's most important to have an SRO at our school in case of emergency. It's a super fast response time to keep us all safe. Next, I wanted to look at what our students who identify as white are saying. So these are the top rated thoughts from our students who identify as white. It can be intimidating as a freshman seeing a police officer not knowing why they're there. You should send out an email to freshmen. We read that a little bit earlier. Getting to know each other, getting to know a school resource officer can be important because you may need help from time to time. A school officer is more inviting law enforcement personnel that students feel safer to interact with and talk to about concerns they have. Again, we saw that one earlier too. I can understand why they're reserved in their interaction. This again is a duplicate that we saw earlier. I personally have never interacted with her and I don't really know what she is there for. I think it would be helpful to have the school make it known to all students the purpose of her being there and what issues should be brought to her. Lastly, allow students to build relationships with law enforcement. Kids will be less likely to get into trouble with the law, and it allows them to view law enforcement in a positive light and on a more personal level. So those were kind of just the top rated thoughts from those sets of students. Next, we have kind of the top rated, the themes. We tried to look at all of the thoughts coming through and theme them. And the basic themes that we saw were relationships, safety, equity, mental health, emotional well-being, the SRO responsibility and expectations, and then student voice. Of the top three, these were some of the top rated comments that were about relationships, building positive relationships. Getting to know can be important because you may need their help from time to time. I can understand, okay, we've read that one before. Allow students to build a relationship with law enforcement. Kids will be less likely to get in trouble with the law. Students knowing how to talk to the SRO, where and how to contact them, being welcomed. This last one, again, we took these straight. Some of them have some grammar errors in them, but hi, that you are a person of color does not mean the police scare you. I like our SRO and I like to talk to her because, and it is good. If they asked you how you're feeling today, because if a person wasn't feeling not good, of course, people would want to know that to feel better, to get some leverage. I don't know what that one is. That's that first theme, relationships. Those were the top rated thoughts in that. The next one is safety. So here's breaking this down by the safety theme. Here are kind of some of the top rated thoughts from them. We've seen the top one, a school officer is a more inviting law enforcement personnel. A student should have immediate protection if asked. I think it's important to have an SRO at our school in case of an emergency. It's a super fast response time. I think that having an SRO in our school makes me feel much safer. I feel better knowing that there's a trained person there if something happens. Students these days automatically think of what they would do to try to escape a bad situation, and having someone to ease that makes me feel safer. She's helpful and I feel safer knowing she's in the school. Keep schools safe. And then the last theme, equity. The potential harm that could be inflicted outweighs the potential good. Police aren't trained enough to handle the mental health calls or calls with disabled people. So having one in the learning space with students from these groups is concerning. SROs have to make sure they study the evidence and the problem that occurred. Stereotyping students is very harmful. So the next slide I'm going to pull up is actually the differences. So next, what we tried to do is looking at these thoughts, we saw some kids were answering one way and other kids were answering another way. And then we used the software to find out, well, what do they both agree on? And so I'm going to show you the differences, and then I'm going to show you what both of the groups of students agreed on. So there's 20 students on the side A here, and then there's 19 students on the side B. So side A is, I think having an SRO in our school makes me feel much safer. I feel better knowing there's a trained person. She's helpful, and I feel safer knowing she is in school. And then on the side B, I believe that it's not healthy to have these SRO police officers in our schools because it makes the students feel like they're criminals. This is important because I want a space where students don't have to worry about being put in jail for minor crimes. And then the other thought on this side B is, I think that having an SRO on campus is dangerous and harmful to safety and well-being of students there. People don't trust police officers, nor do I. Police officers tend to act on violent impulses due to the way they are trained, which isn't fit for the learning environment. And then what we did is we looked and we saw the thoughts that both of those two groups of students agreed upon. And so on this one, the common is, I personally have never really interacted with her and I don't really know what she was there for. I think it would be helpful to have the school make it known to all students what the purpose of her being there and what issues should be brought to her. So that's something that those two opposing groups of students could agree upon. The next group of students, we've got 28 students who are on side A here, and then 15 students on side B. And the side A is resource officers should have a more casual appearance. Casual wear should be encouraged to look a lot more friendly. The police uniform isn't often seen as an intimidation tactic. We don't want to intimidate students away from someone who can help. I'd say they really don't affect the school that much, and it's because students don't want to get into trouble. They'd rather not do anything at school. Plus, students now seem more likely to get help. And then on side B is we should consider the fact that most students don't feel safer with SROs at schools in general due to their violent reputation. It's important to have more counseling opportunities for students and beyond. We shouldn't focus on possible crime behavior. And then what both of those two groups of students agreed upon was this: a school officer is a more inviting law enforcement personnel that students feel safer to interact with and talk to their concerns about. This level of open communication makes it more accessible for students to get help. A student is less likely to call 911 or talk to an admin. I can understand why they're reserved in their interaction, but I think they should talk to students a bit more. I want to be more welcome to interact with the officers of the community. And then our last kind of differences here. Group A is 25 students and Group B is 17. Safety. Side A is, I think it's important to have an SRO at our school in case of an emergency. It's a super fast response time. Stop the drugs in our school. Too many students are getting high in the state, and the state they're in and location is dangerous, like the wood room. On side B, resource officers, I believe, should not be carrying any sort of weapon, even concealed. It's likely that they don't, but this is something important. Having any sort of weapon, even a baton or a taser, is just a bad idea. There is rarely a situation where a weapon is warranted, even outside of the high school. And then the other comment here is it's intimidating, even to me, a white female. Imagine how our Latinx and Black students feel. I know of at least a few people who have been terrified to see the SRO, thinking they will be deported. Those are the two different sets of ideas and thoughts. Where they're in common is a school resource officer is a more inviting law enforcement personnel that students feel safer to interact with and talk to about their concerns. I can understand why they're reserved in their interaction. I think they should talk to students a bit more. So those are kind of some looks at the different viewpoints and where they have some commonalities. We also talked to our staff. From our staff, we asked that same question. We had 80 participants. 123 thoughts and about 2,000 ratings. They were split. About 3/4 of this was licensed and about 1/4 of it was classified employees. Looks like 77% thought that they had a safe school. Another 20% neither agreed or disagreed, and about 3% felt like there was some safety issues at the school. Again, we're about 61% white with this and about 15%. I think our district average is about 22% of minority staff. So we're a little overrepresented, but we're not that far. The top thoughts from staff were, it would be really helpful to have some data. It's difficult to consider what the impacts of the SRO are without any sense of how often the SRO intervenes and in what kinds of situations, and without any information or about how they are perceived by the students. That was the highest rated thought. Build positive relationships with students. It's important for the SRO to build positive relationships with both students and staff. An SRO allows for more direct access to police when students make reports that have legal implications. Staff personnel are able to collaborate with the SRO and advocate for students in a way that they're unable to with the police department. I will say that we don't, one of the questions Narce was asking a little bit earlier was around data, and we don't have a lot of data. If we move forward, this is one of the pieces that we will need to start up, because we do need to be able to examine kind of who are they interacting with and what are the implications of that. So there's a lot of work around that when we get there. I put a link in here. You'll also, so when we send this out to you, you'll get a chance to look at this. But what I've done here is we pulled up a research brief for you. So in September of 2020, the regional education laboratories did a research brief for all school districts around school-based law enforcement. And so you're going to get, you'll see that and be able to look through and see all of the various reports that are there. What I'm going to do tonight is just try and run you through the basic summaries, some of the conclusions that came out of this. The details are in the paper and you'll have access to that. The most common type of a school resource officer is the one that we're using, which is where the school district has a relationship with a local sheriff or a city police department, and we create an intergovernmental agreement that we both use to put an officer in our school. In 1970, only about 1% of the schools reported the presence of an SRO. In 2017-18, for schools that were larger than 1,000 students, that was about 80% of the schools in the nation had an SRO. Among secondary schools, it's about 61% of the schools have an officer there for more than 1 day a week. 3 presidential administrations, Clinton, Obama, and Trump, have all authorized increases to federal funding to support more police in schools following the high casualty mass shootings of Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Parkland. So that's where part of this is emerging. So here's kind of the conclusions that they came to. One, although there's some research findings that supports the merits of school-based law enforcement, the consensus of the evidence does not support the belief that police presence makes schools safer overall. So that's not something we're going to find in the data. Your reasoning for having a SRO can't just be that they're making schools safer, because that's not what the research is finding. The authors report that increased numbers of SROs were associated with increases in drug and weapons related offenses, as well as exclusionary discipline. They're going to, I'll just keep rolling here and then we'll come back. Additionally, reviews of the studies examining schools with police versus schools without them do not indicate reductions in crime or increased perceptions of safety. So again, placing the police in the school doesn't necessarily change those pieces. The last thing they said, which is the evidence base, however, has not yet included a randomized, controlled trial testing the impact of school policing on subsequent measures of safety. The National Institutes of Justice funded several rigorous studies on different aspects of school-based law enforcement in 2015, and that data has not come back. All the studies before that are very causal. So, I mean, they're not causal, they're correlational, which is they're correlating that, you know, where did data go and you had SROs in the school. They're not saying that there's any causality between them. They have studies that are going out to look at that, but we don't have that data yet. So if we're looking for that, we're not going to see it. Recommended in this research brief, what they do say is that if you're going to use an SRO, there's kind of some best practices that you should look at building into whatever agreement you're going to make. These come from the National Association of School Resource Officers. These are more considered kind of lessons learned. As school districts have gone into this, they've created these and to solve problems that they came up against. And so the first one is have a clear memorandum of understanding and intergovernmental agreement that governs the relationship between the school district and the law enforcement that has all of the things that you were talking about, training and cost and all of the pieces, what the goals of the program are, all of that needs to get laid out in an MOU. Undertake careful processes to select which officers work in schools. We want officers who connect with kids. That's the real purpose of this. The 1/3 of the goals in this was to create a positive environment. So we're looking for officers who can connect and build trust with students so students can tell them when something is going on. Provide significant specialized training for school-based law enforcement officers. This would be, Henry talked a little bit about this. This would be both the school district and the police department have a part in this. There's an equity piece that the school district needs to take take on. And so the officer would begin to be in our equity trainings and the rest. There's another part that the police department needs to do, and that is kind of this, what Henry talked about there, the national training for school resource officers. Provide training to specifically address implicit bias and racism. Emphasize the non-law enforcement roles. Integrate officers within the schools and the communities they serve, and then use data for accountability and improvement. And again, we don't really have that data. We have not been keeping that. So that's got to be part of the change that needs to happen here, is to bring back data each year for the board to evaluate and to look at. So I've got some next steps here, but why don't I take questions before we get to the next steps?
I have a couple questions, and some of them have been answered. And one of them was, well, several: mental health specific training, disability bias, racial bias training, implicit bias, restorative justice techniques, cultural competency training. And I'm glad you addressed those, Dave, because I think those are important. I have a couple questions though. Do the SRO help immigration and customs reinforcement find and arrest undocumented students?
The answer is no.
I thought that. Do SROs have data access to students' records?
In what sense? Like
Well,
school records or?
Yeah, school records.
So
I think I'll let Dave answer that.
Yeah, so I think the basic gist on that is that contact information, yes. After that, they don't have a reason to have any access to school, to the student's school record.
Okay, thanks. I think you've addressed this one on collecting data, because once we collect data, then we have ways of problem solving and working with the police and our district. And then also see what, our demographic characteristics tracked, then we can see what's happening. And so I'm glad you're addressing that. Another is, if a student on a 504 or an IEP, can the parent request a student's case manager or special ed teacher be present in a probable cause concern?
I'll let Karen answer that. I mean, I think I know what I'm going to say there, but.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I am a supporter of the SRO, but I am concerned, and I know, Henry, you are well aware of what's happened in the last year with the media, and that is, how do we reach out to the children in our district and their parents, to build respect and positive interaction. I know that's not a simple thing to do, but that's one of the key things. When I looked up the definition about an SRO, it's to promote mutual respect. And I know we all have to work together because we're all a community, but that is a concern of mine. Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a comment, just listening to, I have many years of working with a lot of SROs over, especially at Forest Grove High School. And I do like the comment that was made, I think, by a student and maybe a staff person too, that to clarify expectations for the student body about the role of the SRO. I think that in the past, he or she has just been part of the what went on in the building, but maybe a more formal, clear expectations about what their roles are in the building, and maybe even talk about a vision about, ideally this is what we would like to see happen at Forest Grove High School in terms of the support of the SRO. I really like that part of it. The other piece is just from a positive standpoint. I've at least 4 or 5 SROs, and they've all been great coming from Forest Grove High School. That's my experience. And we've even hired 2 of them after they retired. So I do agree with the data. It has been real anecdotal up to this point. So at some point, building some type of system, or maybe something like the counselors use, or the mental health people use, in terms of recording their experiences and having a log. But those would be my comments, David.
I have just a quick question, and one quick question. This might have been already answered. The SROs are paid by the police department, or is it both? Who pays for them?
It's both. Again, we pay a portion and the city pays a portion. Up to this point, it's been a considerable amount of money over the last, as we're going through and kind of working on will this new agreement look like. We've started looking at other cities around us. And what I can tell you is that amount of money will be much less because of, I think we were, other cities had agreed to a more favorable amount. I don't know how else to say that. Henry, do you see that differently?
No, I would agree with you. We're kind of following the model that pretty much most of the other cities in the metro and the state have taken, and that would be 50% of the cost just during the school year.
I also have a question out of curiosity. So the mechanism that Brad, or system that he mentioned, I totally agree with that, because I feel like we have sort of data and information based on the survey that was done, but I'm not seeing parents' input there. So that's concerning to me, or maybe it was done. Two is, have we had any formal MOU in the past that specifically talks about some of these things, and has the role of the SROs been part of the student and parent handbook?
So what I would tell you is, yes, there was an MOU, but I can tell you there hasn't been one recently. I mean, it ran out. So again, we've got a fresh start here to look at what we want to do, whatever we want to do. You guys are going to vote on this. So I'll be bringing back a IGA that has these pieces that we've been talking about built into it. We've been already talking with the city to try and figure out kind of what that looks like. But I can tell you currently, we do not have a MOU. We need to have one for this to move forward.
And no parents' input, right?
So tonight we're presenting it, and we'll take community input from here between now. At the next meeting, what the thought here. So here's kind of the next steps, and I'll walk you through. We linked in the thought exchange to this presentation for both the staff and the students. This will allow you as board members to go in. We'll send it out to the whole community. Everybody can take a look at it, but you'll be able to see all of the thoughts. And so you'll be able to look through, and not just the ones that we took the top here, but be able to see all of them and to think about that. I've also linked in the research, so you have a chance to kind of go through and take a look at that. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll continue to put this out, and parents can begin to provide public comment on what they want. I can also push out a thought exchange to parents. That's fine. That just wasn't, we felt like this 2 weeks where parents, if they want to make public comment, they could. We'll take a look at, we briefed in the research. We're going to take a look at the recommendations that you just saw from that research. We'll build those into the IGA. If you have questions between now and the next board meeting, send those to me. We'll get answers for those. We'll bring back the IGA for you to take a look at, and then you can decide on what the next steps for this are, which will be some sort of vote to either approve that contract or not. Brad.
Dave, I do like the idea that Narcy brought up about parent comment. I think it would be a good idea for the district to make it clear to parents how they can provide their input during this next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So far, we've heard from, the board's heard from the same people, not always the same people, but it seems to be a thread right now. But I would be interested to hear from more of the parents, give them the opportunity to give us input based on the information you provide and what their opinions are.
And if I may add to that, Dave, and I don't know if Mr. Garcia can help this, or some of your Spanish speaker administrators or staff. The way that, if this was to be presented, if, you know, the survey and all of that, or those questions be asked to parents, that's really not culturally appropriate. I think it needs to be more in a different way, whether it's a focus group or phone call, or I know it's hard right now because of virtual settings that we have, but I think it's important to look at getting information from the parents, especially the Spanish speakers, in a different modality. So I think it's important to do that, so we get the perspective. And I have a bias, because I did have as a parent in Forest Grove School, I did not have a positive interaction with the SRO at all. It was just no help at all.
Gotcha. Let me see what we can do about doing that.
And I also recommend, excuse me, one more thing. We need a bilingual person if we end up getting SROs.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would just say that some of the comments that we've seen have been really good comments from students and staff, and some of the sort of those recommendations from that study. I just think, you know, like Brad, my time in education, I've worked with 4 or 5 SROs over my time of being a school administrator, and I like the conversations that are happening between students and schools and SROs and the police department. I like that. If I go back to when I started administration, I was just, that's just the way it was. I sort of have to say, and there wasn't much dialogue. And so I think seeing this and seeing the input and the comments and all this conversation, I think is great. So that's what I would add.
I have a couple of questions and comments. I'm not sure maybe if Karen could answer this or not. I don't really want to put her on the spot, but when the chief was presenting, he mentioned that one of the roles the SRO officer has is going into classrooms and speaking to the students. And I thought, you know, I was curious what classrooms they've been in and what are they speaking on?
So it really does depend. We've got like a criminal justice class that, and that's not the right word, I'm just drawing a blank, but that they'll go in and do presentations sometimes. Some years it's been more than others. Sometimes it's you know, if they're talking different careers, things like that, they'll talk about, you know, getting into law enforcement and what that looks like. And like I said, criminal justice. And then high school, we've not seen it, but obviously at the upper elementary, it's been the DARE program and you know, things like that they've gone and worked with kids. I do like the focus on building the relationships and really building that relationship between, you know, all of our students and an SRO. I think there's a lot of positive things that can happen there. And I like the new direction, honestly. I can tell you from a discipline, you know, investigatory, or even like a harassment or sexual harassment or any kind of abuse case or concern, feels so much better on all sides to have someone work with the kids and the families that you know and that you know works well with kids than calling non-emergency and just having whoever's on shift show up. And we've had to do that sometimes. And it's just not turned out the best, you know? So in that regard, focusing on building the relationships and, you know, communicating really well what the role of the SRO is, and building a positive school climate and safety makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm glad that you added that part in, because that was my other question and / statement is I would like to know how the SROs are planning on engaging with the students to build better relationships and trust. I'd like to have that information. I want to know what the plan is.
So what we, Val,
Also,
what we've
one more thing is that when we're talking about building these relationships, I just kind of wonder if the high school age is maybe not the right time to be doing that. I just feel like at 15 or 16, I already had my mind set on what I thought the police officers' roles were in my life. And maybe at a younger age, it would be more beneficial to build those relationships. Just a thought.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those perceptions change, to be honest, and it's really helpful with an SRO going out at lunchtime and just approaching tables and engaging kids in conversations and just talking to kids. You know, welcoming them when they come into school. You know, they're like all of us on duty, and just, you know, saying good morning and, you know, how you doing? But I would say the biggest piece that we've seen improvements in building those relationships is at lunch, and just approaching lunch tables and just sitting down sometimes and just talking to the kids.
Yeah, I totally agree that that would be the best time and way to do it.
You know, Karen, I wonder about homeroom because the chief was talking about bullying and dating. There are a lot of kids that are very quiet and reserved. And if an officer went in homeroom and said, you know, I'm just going to talk a little bit about bullying and what we can do and how we can help in that, you know, oftentimes kids go, they get bullied and no one knows until after the fact. And I know your schedule and your academics are demanding, but there are a lot of kids that are really quiet and reserved. And if you went in homeroom, and I know it's a lot of time in that, but I think kids need to understand about bullying and dating and what's appropriate and what's not. And yes, we would like our parents to share that, but I don't know. I think those are areas that are really serious issues.
No, you're right, Kate, and we've used advisory for that in the past. So you know, it's something totally doable to introduce, you know, the SRO, you know, what they can help kids with, what kinds of questions they can answer. They end up answering a ton of questions, you know, just from kids, some of them really quiet, right? But not really sure who to go to, you know, and so sometimes they might go to a counselor and it's like, okay, let's go talk to the SRO or I mean, our SRO right now, obviously Clarice, you know, some of the kids are extremely comfortable going and talking to her and getting her advice on which way she should go, you know, and get support and things like that. So I think we can use advisory to really kind of do a better job of communicating to kids, you know, what their role is and how they can support kids.
Okay, so here's kind of what I've heard. So we're going to push out some engagement with parents. We're going to do something a little bit different with our second language folks. I know I saw Oz already said he's ready to help, so let me work on that part of it. We're going to bring back the new IGA that has a bunch of these things. You'll be able to look at that and say, is this adequate? Is this not? And then if you're having questions, if you could send those to me over the next week and a half, that would be really helpful as we try to get ready to bring back the contract. And then you guys get to vote and we'll make a decision. Yep.
Don't forget the parent input part, Dave.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was, yes, we will go reach out and do that.
So Dave, just the timeline. So it's the the end of May. So in the middle of May, the next board meeting, we'll have a policy or the IG.
The IGA. I'll bring the IGA. That's the action part here. But again, there's
governmental agreement. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That's the whatever's going to happen. That's the piece. About the only thing that could, just as we try to engage parents on this, if I need to take a little more time, that might be the only complicating factor.
Okay. Will that be for approval at the next meeting, or will that be like a first read? I mean, I'm just trying to.
Yeah. My thought here would be we would do a first read on the 14th and a second read on the 28th. That allows enough people to provide whatever feedback that they want.
Okay. That's what I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Dave, I thought that the themes that came up for the data that you presented from the school.
Yeah.
I thought that those themes were a really good foundation for the training that we would like the SROs to have in those particular fields.
Agreed. Yeah. When you go into the report, let me share my screen again really quick because I just want to show the board what they're going to have access to. When you go into the report part here, it will basically walk you through all of the data parts that you'll be able to look at. And then it will take you to it'll take you to a website where you'll be able to actually interact with this fully. So if I want to go to the themes, you'll be able to look at all of the different themes here and look at all of the thoughts that are underneath those themes. So you'll get an even fuller picture. We'll also share this to to everyone else too. So again, like our community will be able to go through and look at what our kids are saying. So you'll have that access. Perfect. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your help on this, Henry. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for having me, and my door is open. If you have any other questions or concerns, give me a call, or I'll buy you coffee, one of the two.
Thanks very much. Okay. All right, let's move on. I think we have one more presentation, and this is the Summer Enrichment Program opportunities, and this is Mr. O'Neill and Ms. Graves, Angela Graves.
Yes, and thank you. As you know, we are very blessed to have new monies come to our district from the governor and the state legislature. And I'm very pleased, you know, this, as the board knows, this is a very, very tight timeline. We just applied for the grant earlier this month. We haven't even received official word if we've received it, but we're guaranteed we will. But anyway, that's how fast the state is moving. And I was very lucky to call in Angela Graves, the Cornelius Elementary principal, to help me with all of this process in terms of contacting community partners and organizing staff surveys. And we're putting together all the organizational work that we possibly can, and working also with food service and transportation and other departments. So anyway, real quick, the grant timeline is from May 1 till September 30th. And there's three main grants: K-8 Summer Enrichment Grant, 9-12 Summer Academic Success Grant, and Summer Child Care Grant. And I think it's important that we take a moment to take a look at each one of these. Our allocation is $960,000 for the K-8 Summer Enrichment Grant. It requires a 25% match or $320,000 district match. And that's where we're pulling from ESSER 3 funds, which are designed, 25% of that money. I think 20% is for student engagement, student enrichment, student support. So it's a perfect match for this monies. So that gives us $1.2 million for our allocation. And then for that K-8 summer enrichment, we also receive the charter schools share. And that's $29,000 plus a $9,000 district match for a total of $39,000 additional allocation. So we've surveyed our staff as well as Forest Grove Community School for their willingness to participate in these programs. So the enrichment K-8 grant funding is for enrichment activities, which, examples, robotics, dance, art, music, outdoor programs, etc. Academic learning and readiness supports, examples like summer school, bridge programs, like Jumpstart, transition programs, etc. And then also social emotional learning and mental health services. And the eligible uses of funds are teachers and staff, curriculum, materials and supplies, COVID-related expenditures, third-party contracts, student expenses, examples, incentives, faculty expenses, transportation expenses, snacks and meals, and administrative expenses. Now, those administrative expenses are capped at 5% of the overall grant. So again, the K-8 portion, summer enrichment, we surveyed our staff, all K-8 staff members, and 162 staff members were willing to participate, even though they've been taxed at an unbelievable undertaking of online education and then simulcast, et cetera, during the pandemic. But I think this is a great testament to the kind of teachers and staff that we have, that they are willing to give up their summer or parts of their summer to support this K-8 summer enrichment academic planning for our kids. 106 teachers and counselors volunteered and 61 classified for just the K-8 staff. And we asked staff, first of all, are you interested in supporting and working in the program? And yes or no, and which dates, which weeks would you be interested, mornings or afternoons? So we collected all that data. And then we also asked, are you interested in providing an enrichment activity or club or academic skill building activities online or in person? So we are collecting all that information. Also, what's very important is we have current discussions with the following community partnerships. Forest Grove Park and Rec are going to be amazing. We're going to offer programs from July 6th through August 27th at Lincoln Park, Rogers Park, Harleman Park, and Tom McCall Upper Elementary School. And it is just simply amazing. Kids can come in, drop in, or they can go ahead and sign up for enrichment activities. And those enrichment activities, I just want to give a big shout out to Ann Lang, the Park and Rec director. She's reached out for separate contracts for Santos Soccer, Outdoor Education, Play Well Technologies, Mad Science, Native American Arts, Parkour Gyms, Skyhawk, Northwest Children's Theater, Pegasus Puppet Theater, 2 circus businesses, Echo Theater, Coil Outside. I mean, it's just amazing. So those are the activities that kids can sign up for. And we're putting together a brochure in English and in Spanish that we will share shortly with our parents so that they can go ahead and see the dates and locations, and also to sign up to participate. But we've also worked with Forest Grove Library, Cornelius Library. They have a tremendous reading program, and we're going to support their program with supplying some gift books and some other incentives for kids. We're going to, bump their programs up. Central Cultural, we're working with them. Chute Park Aquatic Center for the swim safety lessons through the Red Cross, as well as even some lifeguard certification and water safety certification for high school students that are in need of PE credit in order to graduate or become on track. We can offer those, and then they can get real-time jobs very quickly, both in Forest Grove and at the Chute Park Aquatic Center. We've worked with the city of Cornelius. As you heard, we mentioned Harleman Park. Rob Drake has been amazing working with him. And yes, we can have Forest Grove Park and Rec in the city of Cornelius delivering this park program for our Cornelius students. Saturday Academy, we're one of 3 sites in the state that we will be providing classes through at Tamacall Upper Elementary. Adelante Chicas and Pacific University in multiple staff proposals have reached out to their friends and colleagues to help support staff activities. Also, what's so cool is at Lincoln Park, we're going to get the Pacific University Athletic Complex during that time. So we will be on the on the Pacific University field. So a lot of great partnerships. There's several that we have not identified just in this as we move forward, but a lot of work and a lot of partnership. So Angela.
All right, this is such exciting news. We just imagine if you've ever lived in a park and recs district before. Unfortunately, we don't have one in Cornelius or in Forest Grove. And so what we're providing is we're going to provide a course catalog like you would if you lived in a Parks and Rec district, where all of these options are going to be laid out for parents with schedules and everything. And then they get to choose, and everything is free, 100% free. So this is just an outstanding once in a lifetime opportunity for our kids. We're going to make up for their summer last year. So in addition to all the K-8 enrichment programs, we are doing a 9-12 academic recovery program for our credits that we need at the high school level. So that's the Summer Academic Success Grant. That's for 9-12. You must get credit for our high school students to get this money. And so our Forest Grove allocation is $770,000, and our district match is 25%, which is close to $250,000, for a total of $1.027 million. So again, we are offering services to our high school students, and these summer programs for high school students must have academic credits that they need to stay on track for graduation to qualify for this funding source. All of the uses of funds are, as John stated, in the K-8 grant, same exact funding sources, but they must get the kids academic credit. It's not for enrichment. And we surveyed all the high school staff, and 60 staff members are willing to participate, which is amazing. It's like half of the high school. So that's 47 certified teachers and 13 classified. And we're going to offer both online and in-person instruction for students who need credits to get on track to graduate. And right now what we're doing is currently examining our student data to determine which students need credit and what credit do they need to get them back on track. And then, in addition to the enrichment grant and the credit grant at the high school, we have a summer child care grant. This is awesome. Forest Grove's allocation is $424,000. And what it gives us is it gives us wraparound childcare services for K-5 students. So those are students who are ages 5 to 12. And they can participate in our summer enrichment programs, and they also can get childcare. So we will provide wraparound childcare for students who are eligible for free or reduced meal prices. We will provide them with meals during the day. We will even provide them with transportation and childcare from 7:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon. And we will be partnering with Champions, who has been our childcare provider during the pandemic. We have had them at Fernhill and Harvey Clark this year, and they have proven themselves to be a great partner with the district. They provide excellent childcare. They use our facilities very well. So we've identified 2 sites for them, Fernhill Elementary and Tamacall Upper Elementary this summer. And again, the services will run from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Breakfast and lunch are provided. Students will have summer enrichment activities to do. And there'll be 2 options for families. They can do what they call wraparound care, which means before and after one of our other camps that we're offering, or full day care. And the full day care will also include summer enrichment activities. So Champions will provide their own summer camp. So they're going to make the daycare really fun by having themed weeks and doing other really fun things. So kids can, for example, come to Tomahawk and participate in one of our camps from 9 to noon. But mom works, she needs to drop them off on her way to work. So she can come to Tomahawk, drop them off at 7:30. They can be with Champions from 7:30 to 9. Then somebody from Champions will walk them to their next classroom, which will also be on Tomahawk's campus. They'll do their summer camp from 9 to noon. Then they will be walked back to Champions, where they're going to be there until 5:30 when mom gets off work and comes and picks them up. Or another option, if the kids don't want to do one of our fun summer camps, they can just be at Champions all day and do their fun summer camps there. So it's a win-win. And the kids who qualify for this childcare, again, it has to be ages 5 to 12, and they need to be a Forest Grove student. And if they attend Cornelius, Echo Shaw, Fernhill, or Joseph Gale, they automatically qualify, because those schools are 100% free meals. And if they're at Dilley or Harvey Clark and they qualify for free or reduced meals, then they also qualify for this childcare. And the funds are available on a per child basis. So if we have 100 kids that want in, we will pay for 100 kids and will be reimbursed from the state for 100 kids, for example. And we submit those requests, and that's how childcare is going to work in our district this summer. It's going to be an amazing experience for our kids.
Thank you, Angela. Again, this is a very short timeline for planning and implementation. We're still in the planning stages with our staff, creating programming, making sure that we remain within the budget that we have, reviewing with principals and myself and Angela, as well as community partners. There's some really, really exciting, fun-filled, staff-generated programming that I can't wait to share with you. We are finalizing our external partnerships and other expenses, which will require school board approval if it's $50,000 or more, and we're going to go ahead and bring those expenses that are just under 50,000 to you as well. Dave?
Yeah, and so we're probably the week of the 7th, June 7th, we're probably going to need to run a special board meeting just to get those approvals. We would have brought them tonight, but we're just not quite there yet. So we need a little bit more time to develop those pieces. But Kathy and I will be reaching out to see if we can find a time right in that January 7th range that'll work for folks.
I have just a couple of comments. John and Angela, it's been quite a year, and now you've got all this money and you got to gallop really fast. It's terrific what you're doing, and it's going to be so great for the kids. The only thing I want to remind both of you is that there have to be some guidelines and expectations with Champions using our libraries. Things were not well done at Fernhill in the library, and it was not with the younger kids, it was with the 4th and 5th graders. So that's a passion of mine, but they need to have expectations on taking care of our property. But great job, thank you.
Thank you, will do.
John and Angela, I also want to say thank you. I can only imagine how much work and organizing and infrastructure you must put in place along with everybody that's going to help with this. So thank you. And it was really nice to hear that there's going to be some cultural activities going on with Native and stuff. By curiosity, is there going to be any ballet folklorico of any sort?
Central Cultural is doing a STEAM program, and they are planning to use my school at Cornelius for that, and they would like to bring in ballet for that experience.
Wonderful, thank you.
But we do have also a full-blown mariachi proposal as well. It's going to be, and the culminating activity for that mariachi camp is a performance. So we'll be sure to invite all board members to come and participate and see it.
Okay, thanks, John and Angela. Lots of good things going on there. And like Kate said, you guys are, I mean, very, very busy at a busy time of the year anyways. So thank you. Okay, we have 2 action items this evening next on our agenda. The first is policy JFF, educational equity, and this is the second reading. I think this is Osvaldo is.
So I'm going to start it.
Okay.
So I'm going to start it. And again, Osvaldo Garcia Contreras is here along with me. We didn't receive any questions in the 2 weeks. So we would just open it up to you now if there's any questions or any things that we can answer about the policy. Other than that, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Dave. I don't know if any of the other board members do.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't hear any. So we'll take a motion. I'll move that we approve policy JFF, educational equity.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Comments? No comments. So we'll do a roll call vote. I'm a yes. Narce?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. The next action item is Tomahawk Upper Elementary School bus loop asphalt replacement. I believe Mr. Noreen is speaking to this one.
I got this one, Mark. If that's okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It said Kevin. So
Thank you.
Okay.
So tonight we have the asphalt replacement around the Tomahawk bus loop. It is the lowest bid was for Haas Paving for $129,700. We did receive 3 full bids, and the project is anticipated to be funded from the remaining bond funds. The December bond update that we provided you had $100,000 set aside for asphalt replacement this summer. This is a little over, and so what we would just recommend is that the full thing be funded from remaining bond funds, and the 30,000 over would just come from the uncommitted bond funds that we have still sitting out. If I remember right, there was a little over $800,000 that was sitting uncommitted in bond funds at that time. So there's availability and capacity to do the full project. So right now we're seeking board approval for the Tomahawk asphalt project with Haas Paving for $129,700.
Okay. Any questions for Eileen? Okay, no questions. Is somebody want to put forward a motion?
I move that we support the Tomahawk Upper Elementary bus loop asphalt project as written.
With that lowest bid.
Right.
Thanks, Val.
Second.
Sorry, we don't have that in front of us, so we don't know the exact number to say.
Okay.
Kate seconded it though.
Okay. It was the $127,000 one, right?
$129,700.
7. Okay.
Okay, that's fun.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Any comments? No. Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Kate?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Narce?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to future action items. So there are 3 here this evening. First one's Neil Armstrong Middle School planned course statements. And this is the first reading. Juliana Kelly is here to maybe speak to these a little bit.
Yes. Hello again, and thank you. You have I believe in your packets, a summary of the proposed elective courses that our teachers are excited about. And I put together a summary just so you could have like a 2-pager there. I don't know if I can share my screen, but maybe. Let's see. Yes, I can. The summary looks like this one here. So each of these links have a full proposal as well. So these are some electives, and as a newer administrator, I asked about how do we come up with new electives and what do we do? And part of the process was to bring these to you. So if I miss something in this process, just holler at me. On the left here, you'll see some of these electives. So one is a proposal for having a jazz band added to our band selections, which sounds pretty fun. We also have a potential proposal for a general music class. And kind of what we're thinking for this is we have awesome number of really talented teachers who can teach our music courses. And for some of the courses, we want to see more kids in those classes. And what I hear is that historically that's kind of been the case. And one idea to get some more kids in a class is to propose a potential general music. And it would look a little bit different than, it wouldn't be like an elementary course, but more specific towards what are our offerings at middle and high school? What does that look like beyond middle and high school? So there's a proposal for that one. And I'm going to go kind of quickly through these and then we can take some questions. Another new proposal is for an ethnic studies elective. So as you may know, it will be a requirement for ethnic studies to be taught in our schools. So this is a great opportunity for us to start to explore what will be required and what we will need to do a really good job teaching that class. And we have kids who are interested in it and a teacher who's excited to work through that and talk about some of these histories. Space exploration and you. This is one that our science teachers are really excited about, and I can guarantee we're going to have kids stoked about this. The explanation for this one is pretty straightforward. Script and Scribbles was one that we had for this coming year, but as of right now, that was one of our English language arts teachers who wanted to do Script and Scribble, so she's no longer going to teach it, but we'd like to have it on here as a potential for the future. She has some really great ideas that include writing and art together, along with literacy to get kids excited. And then to bring in a photography class, which is also pretty self-explanatory. And in addition to those proposals, we just had a conversation at NAMS about our current math titles that all say CCSS, which makes sense for when they were created. When we moved to CCSS, it made sense to change those titles just to simplify and have them be Math 7, Math 8, Accelerate Math 7 for simplicity for our families and our kids. So that is a brief overview of that. Do we have anything I can explain further?
Juliana, this is Narce. So this is for NAMS, just out of curiosity. Is the ethnic studies class / elective also going to be offered at the high school?
Eventually. Go ahead.
We have one.
Yeah.
We
You
brought
have them
it.
already?
Yep. Jen Coleman, assistant principal, brought it before the board. How long ago? Year and a half ago, I think.
Okay, must have been right when I got on board. Okay, thank you.
So I just have a question about the new courses. Sometimes when you add new courses, there's budget implications to that. Are there, I guess the budgets for these have been penciled out, right? So that
yeah. So, well, two things. One, with the summer enrichment, some of these teachers, for example, the photography teacher has applied to teach a summer camp to help with that, with the funding of cameras. However, she has a backup plan as well. But we do have budget for electives.
Okay. And that's Juliana, that'll be sustainable year to year?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And then I guess my other question is, how did these courses come about? Was there a survey of students to ask, was there a menu of sort of courses that they could check off that they were interested in? Is that how?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's twofold. So we also ask for teacher input, and
Okay.
we do that every year, asking teachers specifically about electives, if they're enjoying the elective they're teaching, if they, if it went well, what they could tweak, that kind of reflection. And then we also have tweaked our forecasting a little bit to be a little bit more generalized this year to get overall themes of what kids are really excited about.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Juliana? Okay, thanks very much. This is just information tonight. Is it back for approval at our next meeting, I think. So.
Thank you.
Okay, next is future action item is Fidelity Insurance presented by Eileen Clute.
Thank you, Mark. So tonight we have the Fidelity Insurance coverage kind of review and discussion with you. As part of our annual audit process with the auditors, we're required to evaluate the district's practices and our financial risks. One of the things that they noted as a best practice was this. It says, in reviewing Fidelity Insurance coverage, we found that the district often carries cash and investment balances in excess of its insurance coverage amount. We recommend that the board examine this exposure and make a determination as to the amount of insurance coverage they feel is prudent in regard to their oversight. When the board came, or not the board, the auditors came in January to present the annual audit, she also talked about this. We carry much more than the $1 million in coverage than we have. I think our last month's cash balance was like $38 million. So there isn't a possibility for us to cover enough insurance to cover all of our cash, but at least have a conversation annually with the board and kind of get a feel of what your comfort level is for the level of insurance coverage we have. We do have $1 million. In speaking with Alicia, she's our insurance agent with Assured Partners, which is previously WSC. And most of her school districts that she works with have between $25,000, $250,000 and $1 million in their insurance coverage for school districts. And then their other governmental agencies are pretty much at $1 million. Nobody really goes over that for government agencies that she represents. PACE doesn't offer insurance coverage over the $1 million either. So if we do go outside, or if we do want additional insurance over and above our $1 million, we would have to go outside of PACE and procure it through an outside party. Right now, with the $1 million, it's about $6,400 a year for the first $1 million that we have. I did have Alicia go out and get us a quote for what an additional $1 million would be. And so this other quote is for travelers insurance, and it would be $1 million in coverage with $1 million deductible. So it would act more like a layering. So our PACE $1 million would be the deductible for this $1 million. And so combined, it would be a $2 million insurance coverage. And that would be an additional $3,552 a year for the next year. So at this time, it's really opening it up to the board, and you guys can ask some questions or kind of what's your comfort level in the maximum insurance coverage that we have for our Fidelity Insurance.
Eileen, in the past, have we had this insurance?
Yes, this has always been on our audit review. It's on here every year. It's standard. Even if we do up our insurance coverage and have this conversation every year, it's still going to be an internal note on our audit, but it won't be a public note on our audit. So the auditors are assessing our risk. And so they're always going to have this as a comment.
Go ahead.
sorry. Back when I first started, I remember we had a lower deductible, a lower insurance coverage. I can't remember what it was, but I know we've already increased it once in the last several years. So this would be another increase.
What would be your recommendation?
I don't know of other districts that have more than million, and PACE maxes out at the million. I do know that this is a significant risk in the area right now, just with all of the fraud and computer stuff and phone calls, you know, just everything that's happening. I'm hearing it hitting schools and districts across the board. So it's $3,500 a year for an extra million.
So
Yeah, I wonder about ransomware. That's been my concern. You know, would that cover it if we had additional insurance? Would that cover the ransomware? I suppose it depends on what they want.
Yeah, it depends on it depends on how it goes. This insurance is more for employee fraud or issues. So if an employee intentionally or non-intentionally does something that causes damage. So it's going to depend on what policy covers that, on how it happens, I think. And we
So
do have we have a crime coverage too.
Which would cover ransomware, right?
I think so, but I can confirm that for you, Kate.
Yeah, that's a big issue. Thank you.
So Eileen, so I guess I was confused about what this would cover, because I think I shared maybe with you or you and Brad that I heard a podcast about a school IT guy that got their district got maybe like Kate said, a ransomware thing, but this would not, I guess this wouldn't cover anything like that.
No, I think that's a different policy that we have. This one's more going to be for like funds transfer. They have a few different things in here. So like if one of the business office does a funds transfer to their own personal account, or fraud in, it could be an administrator or anybody else misusing the district's credit card. So it's more based on employee.
Okay.
But I can follow up on the ransomware and that kind of stuff to see what our policy is for that and give you guys that information too.
I think that's good. When I did listen to the podcast, it was pretty interesting because they talked about how public agencies, their books are open, right? And so when I listened to it, it was people are looking at public books and seeing where money is, right? And trying to ransom some money. So anyways, a separate issue, but it would be maybe worth looking at that. So
yeah, I can look at that, the cybersecurity and the insurance and stuff on that side.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the other piece for me would be knowing what the other districts are doing,
yeah.
What their dollar amount is, because typically if we're in line with everybody else, I think we're okay. In my opinion, we'll be okay. But I would be curious to know about the ransomware too.
Okay, any other questions for Eileen? Yeah, I don't hear any. So Eileen, was this just a discussion tonight? And then did you want to, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring the information on the ransomware next time.
Okay.
But the other districts that work with Assured Partners or WSC go between $250,000 and $1 million. PACE maxes out at $1 million. So most districts in the state probably are not over that $1 million. But as far as tonight, it's really just information and then asking for you guys to vote on that coverage limit next time.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Okay, let's see, under future board items or board discussion, I have just a little bit of a report about the District Financial Oversight Committee. We met for our spring meeting on May 12th of 2021. And we covered many topics. Eileen does a great job of presenting all the financial information. Brad and I sit on that. And so some of the things that we talked about at that meeting was the financial update for fiscal years 2020, 2021, 2021-22, and 22-23 projecting. We talked about the 2019-2020 audit results, policy and AR review, and an update on purchasing and travel, PACE insurance and cybersecurity audit, which I think we talked about maybe this evening, interim 2020-2021 audit results, our bond rating, the David Hill property purchase, internal control of financial activities questionnaire. So she presents just a lot of good financial information at the meetings, and I'm appreciative that she's doing that. It keeps me a little bit up to speed on all the financials going on in the district. Well, Brad and I at these meetings. So that was that's my information for this evening. I don't know, are there any other board members want to make any comments at this time about anything else? Okay, hearing none, I think we'll conclude the board meeting, and we'll adjourn at, it looks like 7:32 p.m. So the meeting's adjourned. So have a nice rest of your meeting, or your rest of your evening, everybody. And thanks for attending.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.